Mega Mac guys here on Birds 365. We're always excited when we have our next guest join us, even if I had no idea who the hell I was booking. Because when I reached out 2 days ago to see if Brad Spielberger would join us, I thought we were going to get our PFF guy, our over the cap guy, and now we got an agent in our midst. When did all of this come down, Mr. Spielberger?
Yeah, so technically not an agent, just a contract negotiator for a bunch of agents, not certified as of yet. But yeah, it's been going on for a little bit, and excited to finally really get in on the action, be directly involved in player negotiations, help our guys maximize their earnings and take care of them for the long term. So yeah, just went down this past week. Friday is my last day here at PFF. But I'll still be around and probably still helping out over the cap if I can. So yeah, I'll be around.
All right. Director of Football Administration, big time title, Grand Central Sports Management. So congratulations, Brad. Now, two things before, are you trying to become an agent? Number one. And if you are, you got to do two things for me. One, when you get power and when you get in there and when people start listening to you because you're such a smart guy, tell them stop lying about contracts. And then we got to stop with the it's filed and they're completely different numbers and we got to explain it to fans. Please stop that for me. I'll
tell you right now, obviously the agents will probably be the ones more so giving the details and information to the Schefters of the world. And I have made a mandate that we're going to report the actual numbers of our deals. We're not going to hyperinflate things because we are going after smart clients that actually understand the actual nitty-gritty and details. That's my job. Explain to them what actually matters, cash flows, all of those things. Don't buy into the stupidity of the reporting. So, yeah, I agree with you there 110%, and I think that my guys do as well. And I think I'll take the test eventually. At the outset, like I don't want to be traveling all over the country and recruiting a ton, and that really is the biggest part in some ways of the job. So maybe eventually we'll get there, but I want to really just hammer down, be prepping for negotiations, be battling for our clients, and focusing very much so on that.
2 words for both you guys: pipe dream. Good luck trying to get the agents to change that. I do not see that happening anytime in the near future. Good on you if you're going to try, my friend. And if anybody can make it happen, it would be you. Yeah, I think you're swimming very much upstream. Good luck with that one. All right, so, and if you can tell us, please do. If you can't, we certainly understand. They pursue you, you pursue them. Sounds like a gig that you really like and look forward to and want to be able to grow in and maybe mold and have it be something that changes over time. But how did it all come about, if you can tell us?
I would just say this, like the industry is creating more and more of these opportunities. There are more shops that realize, I know this might sound crazy to some people, that like they assume the agent's job is this. Like that, like if the agent's not directly negotiating deals with front offices, what are they doing? There's infinitely more responsibilities that go on for these guys. They're handling marketing opportunities. Like I said, they're doing the recruiting. They're just continuing to, you have guys that help with player development, watch tape, give feedback. Think of anything that an NFL player does, and the agent is just as involved as the club he's working with, the good ones at least. So there are more shops that are now hiring people that are, lawyers and guys heavily involved in contract projection, preparation, and then negotiation. So all things that I've done, at law school and here at PFF. So, it just came about at a great time. It's people that I really like and have liked for a while, which is an important part of any job, is working with people you enjoy as humans, which I certainly do here. So it was a great alignment of interest and opportunity.
Now, do you get to pick where you want to go? I saw they have offices in New York, Philly, where we are in Miami, and I'm going to recommend Miami, Brad, if you get to choose.
So it's a remote job, which is also a huge element for me. Look, my wife's a doctor, so I can't just pick and choose where I live. I live where she lives because there's no such thing as a remote doctor job. As far as I'm aware.
There is now. You can get doctor on demand. There is.
Yeah,
you
true.
Might want to push that.
Yeah, she's not in telehealth. Yeah. So it's remote. I'm moving to Pittsburgh. That was already determined. She's doing her fellowship there.
Nice.
We just signed a lease in Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago, actually. So I'll be in Pittsburgh and I'll just be, doing some traveling.
Very nice. Well, we got you a little bit closer. You keep that on the East Coast. If and when we need you for something, we know you could book you now in the Eastern time zone rather than the Central time. So that's good by us, and we appreciate that. We want to wish you the best. Best of luck. Sounds like a great opportunity and something you're very much looking forward to. So good luck for you there.
Thank you.
Yeah, put all that aside, and let's just talk about draft potential and the stuff that we've been talking about with you for years.
Yeah.
How good a draft class is this? We always want to break it down positionally and too much emphasis on equipment. Overall draft class, everyone whose name is going to be called out going all the way till Mr. Irrelevant, and then those who will be scooped up as undrafted free agents, those that have made themselves available for this year's draft. How good an overall class is it?
Yeah, so depth-wise, it's not good. You've heard a lot of people talk about, some GMs even said now, like 6th and 7th round picks this year, they're probably going to be trying to trade them for future picks or do whatever they can. And the big piece of that is we had the fewest underclassmen declare in the history of the NFL draft, or at least modern history, because of COVID, extra years of eligibility and things like that. I think that's the main driver. But in the first 5 rounds, which realistically for most draft classes is what really matters. Obviously, there are diamonds in the rough, but it's a very, very good class. It goes position to position, like you said. Quarterback, receiver, tackle, elite, as good as it gets at those spots. Linebacker, safety, running back. I don't think we get a top 50 pick. Might not happen for any 3 of those positions.
Wow.
So, it just varies position to position. But overall, I'd say it's like a B+, except for, late day 3, it's going to be some dart throws for sure.
Before I get to the draft and a deep dive, get in the weeds there, I want to talk about the trade market, Brad, because Hassan Reddick here, Eagles can't get what they want immediately, so they go to 2025. They can't get it there. They go to 2026. They get close to what they want. Stephon Diggs, even Brian Burns, if you want to rewind. Are you a little surprised veteran proven players aren't generating a little bit more on the trade market?
First, I would say to the Eagles' point, I don't know for a fact this is their thinking, but if I'm them, I actually would have done that on purpose for 2 reasons. A, you're going to be there most likely. Obviously, things can fall apart, but we always talk about how he has the advantage of comfort and security,
Yes,
and how he can weaponize that. But B, Aaron Rodgers might be playing his last season this
yeah.
year. I know he's said multiple, but we'll see how that goes. So let's say he does play his last season. The Jets are going to stink in 2025. And then you're getting a
I brought that up. Great minds think alike, Brad.
Yeah.
I brought it up.
There you go. So I think I'll tell you right now, I think that is intentional. That is an actual thing you're going to do. And B, also, don't forget, like, let's say next year, it comes to next year, they want to trade for a veteran player or do something, they can use that extra draft pick and send it in a trade or move up in the, so like it's an asset. And I think they don't believe in the time value of draft picks, not only because of their security, but also then other GMs are devaluing those future picks. They all are in theory. And I would just ignore that. I understand if you're a GM that wants to keep their job, that has a mandate to win now, a 2026 pick means nothing to you. But if you're in a secure organization that understands how an NFL team cannot be built in 12 months, you should be using that against teams and getting future draft capital. So that's A. For the overall, for B, I would say no. It's because I think we've had so many recent examples of these trades not really working out. Of course, some have, but a lot haven't. For the older players in particular, right? Everyone's saying yesterday, oh, the Bills got fleeced. The Tennessee Titans traded a 2nd and a 5th for Julio Jones, and he played like 10 games in Tennessee, right? So, like, and he was about a year older than Diggs is now, but still. So, like, I think that we're actually just seeing, I think, a counter to the market based on recent results.
So did the Bills get fleeced when they traded for Stephon Diggs?
That's a different question. Look, he came in for 4 seasons, made 4 straight Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pros. They made the playoffs all 4 seasons. I know they didn't reach the mountaintop, and that was the ultimate goal. They did end up paying him about $20 million extra over the 2 years he had left on his Minnesota deal. With the extension they gave him, they paid him about $20 million. But obviously, he was not going to play for $28 million over those 2 seasons. So he played for about $49 million over those 2 seasons. So no, I wouldn't say that. We do need to, I think, and Eagles fans should appreciate this. Like, if we only view winning the Super Bowl as a successful season, then like, what are we really doing? Making a conference championship game, making deep playoff runs is a successful season. And the Bills did that every year.
I mean, what you just said, 4 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pros. I mean, that's a success from the Bills' standpoint, getting that production. They didn't reach where they wanted to go
every year.
I mean, that is a hell of a player for the Buffalo Bills over 4 years. Yeah, what are we doing? If that's not good enough, I mean, we are getting to that point, though, where I think more and more people are, boy, if we don't win, it's a complete failure, everything. And I was a little surprised that, Mike Sando does his excellent piece every year, offseason piece, talks to a bunch of executives. His little snippet about the Eagles, I don't know if you saw it, Brad, was basically the people around the league think they've kind of lost their identity. You move on from Reddick, you bring in Barkley. That's not Eagles like. Maybe they get back to it with the offensive line in the draft. Do you think teams are overreactionary if they don't reach the goal and sometimes the goal is ridiculous and relentless?
What's funny is when I talk to a bunch of agents about this going down, I think those execs don't understand the Philadelphia Eagles. Trading a soon-to-be 30-year-old edge rusher who wants a new deal and then signing Bryce Huff to a cheaper deal who's 5 years younger is the most Howie Roseman thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
That part, that individual part.
Those guys don't understand him, which makes a lot of sense because he swindles all those guys every offseason. So, no, I don't agree with that at all. But, yeah, you do sometimes, I think you see, like, teams maybe chase it a little bit. I honestly think last offseason, I was kind of surprised they made that big of a push to keep both Darius Slay, and why am I blanking on his name now?
James Bradbury.
And James Bradbury. And again, they both had Pro Bowl years that year. They were both awesome. I get that. But I was surprised because that was, hey, this is a position with volatility where there's a drop off with a certain age. And this isn't just a hindsight analysis because they both struggled last year or got hurt, whatever. But I was a bit surprised they made that push. And so I think that was kind of like, hey, we're chasing this thing. We're so close. Let's just keep everyone here because we're gonna, win the Super Bowl next year. That to me was not Howie Roseman. This offseason has been vintage Howie Roseman, in my opinion.
Except for one thing. And I'm going to allow you to dictate to me how you evaluate running back salaries. Because there are different ways that you can evaluate them. Look at guaranteed money, years, everything else. I can make an argument that the Philadelphia Eagles made Saquon Barkley the second highest paid running back behind only Christian McCaffrey in the National Football League. Saquon Barkley's got some miles on that tread. Been around, carried it a lot, not 25, and they made him the second paid highest linebacker. If the Hassan Reddick trade is vintage Howie Roseman, how do you describe the Eagles committing to a pretty well-used, not overly used, but a pretty well-used running back, the second highest salary in the National Football League?
1,500 touches, Brad. 1,500 touches.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I do think it was an interesting tweet from Albert Breer. He was like, guys, this is the same team that signed Marco Murray away from the Cowboys. He's done this before, but that was obviously eons ago. I agree. That was not something I expected. I think you're probably getting at the full guarantee number is second. I mean, Jonathan Taylor is the second highest paid running back, but nevertheless, it is an interesting deal. And, I do think if I'm ever going to pay a running back, he needs to be the pass catcher that Saquon Barkley is and the pass blocker that Saquon Barkley is. And I think he is a top 5 back in both of those categories in the NFL. So, yeah, that one surprised me. I'm sure people in the building were even kind of surprised they did that. That's not what I would expect the Eagles to do. I would say this, though. This is my philosophy, maybe not theirs, but I would rather spend that money in free agency on that player than use a pick in the first 2 rounds at that position. I would rather chase premium positions in the draft and get the upside of if you hit on a tackle, an edge rusher, what have you, a receiver early on and get all that surplus value and then spend in free agency on a player of that caliber. And I know the outcomes have not been good for a lot of players making big money on the free agent market at running back, but I just think the opportunity cost of not using that pick on a premium spot is worse than spending that cash in free agency. But I don't know if they feel the same way about it. I was certainly surprised. I won't lie to you.
Well, plus it is a bad year running back in the draft, as you were mentioning. So that factors into it as well. Is it just as simple as if you're a contender, you can think about paying a running back. If you're not, like the Giants have been and have that for the entirety of Saquon Barkley's career, basically, it's probably not a good idea to pay a running back.
I think that's a big part of it. I also think, like, if you're going to have the worst offensive line in football, it doesn't matter if you have Saquon Barkley back there. He's not going to be all that productive. And I think he actually got better too. Like, early in his career, he tried to bounce everything outside. He obviously is a premium athlete, a crazy athlete, but it was like, okay, like you're racking up some negative carries because you're trying to bounce everything in this Jeff Stoutland system with a good run blocking scheme, with a good run game. And I think he's gotten better in that regard of the years. His negative carry rate has come down, even if we have fewer, 80-yard break-off runs because he's not 22 years old anymore. There's also way fewer of those negative runs. And now he's going to average 5+ yards a carry in this offense. So, yeah, it's interesting, but I agree. It should be the last position you spend on. And you could argue in Philly it kind of is.
I think you should determine how much you're going to spend on a running back based much more on what the hell else you got and what kind of offense you're going to run, whether then you are or aren't a contender. I could do it either way. If I am a contender, not a contender, explain why I'm going to spend at running back should be determined by the other pieces on the team. That's just for me if I were a GM. All right, speaking of GMs, how about that GM down in Dallas who said he's all in, pushing the chips into the middle of the table and then done squat-ta this offseason? What the hell are the Dallas Cowboys doing this offseason, Brad?
He's funny because they've been one of the lowest spenders in free agency for years.
Nobody ever recognizes that. It's like,
no, because he does such a good job. Yeah. He does such a good job in the media, and we hear so much about the Cowboys, so we just assume or think they're spending. Look, Jerry Jones is running a business and is maximizing profit. I'm not going to say he doesn't care about winning, but he does not go all in. He does not spend aggressively each offseason to try to actually push them over the top. He is comfortable winning 10, 11 games, making the playoffs, winning a game or two, and then getting beat by a better team because that's probably the profit maximizing outcome for an NFL season. And that's what Jerry Jones cares about. He's going to put more money in his other business ventures that the return on that dollar is probably a lot better than paying an extra player. He's not going to call it a con, but he has convinced people and says that every offseason, and it's not true in any way, shape, or form. Never has been.
Yeah. It might be a con, Brad.
There's a little con in there, John, if you let me. And this is something you'd know better than me. I should know, but I don't, so I'm going to defer to you. Paying his coaches. That's one place that the NFL can, if they really think they have. Ask the Denver Broncos about what they're paying Sean Payton. If you really believe that this is a difference maker and you can go to the well and you can pay him that much more, doesn't affect your salary cap. All it does is money out of the owner's pocket. Jimmy was the last coach he paid, and that's now 20-some odd years ago. There's been no other coach that's been a top 5, Is McCarthy even in the top half of salary of NFL coaches?
I'm sure he is. And I will say this in his defense. Dan Quinn was making more than several head coaches in the NFL.
Yeah, he pays his assistants.
He'll pay assistants.
Yeah. But I hear you, though. And look, not extending McCarthy, I'm sure they're going to take a big swing. I wouldn't be surprised if they go get Belichick or something after this year, depending how things go. But no, that is the area where you probably can compete more because there isn't that cap like you mentioned, because they do have the excuse of like, look, I mean, CeeDee Lamb should make $30+ million a year. Micah Parsons probably next offseason, but he should be the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. And Dak Prescott, I know they're playing games right now and negotiating via the media, which is Jerry Jones' favorite thing to do, but I still think they're going to pay him, before the offseason's over. I think he gets an extension too. So there's the excuse there. On the coaching side, no, they should be paying as much as everyone, and they do compete there, but I hear you.
Yeah. That was a better argument in the Dave Campo days. That's
also under Jerry.
Yeah. Will McClay. Yeah. I think the Cowboys built through the draft. They do a good job in the draft. They do. I mean, Eagles fans don't want to hear it. I've been on this kick, Brad, because you used the term. We all use it. You just used it all in. We use it all the time. But most recently, the best example would be Les Snead and them picks and the T-shirt. And here in Philadelphia, we got a team. Once they signed Saquon Barkley, everyone, they're all in. They're a contender there. So you got to bring Reddick back. What does all in mean to you? Because nobody goes on. Those Rams teams, they were playing a bunch of young defensive backs. You can't just have a star at every position. What does all in mean to Brad Spielberger?
I do think the 2021 Rams were about as good of an example as you were going to get. I mean, they were spending about $100 million more than that year's salary cap. It was like 288 versus 188 in that year. They won the Super Bowl. Obviously, trading multiple first-round picks for Jalen Ramsey, Matthew Stafford, all those guys. Like you said, you still can't have every single position be loaded up. And Les Snead, it's funny. The FM picks thing is hilarious because Les Snead actually trades down as much as any GM in the entire history of the National Football League.
Picks, yeah.
And they make 8+ picks every single year. They just haven't had a first-round pick since Jared Goff in 2016. So you have to balance it. But they're about as close as it gets. To me, it is aggressive cash spending. And obviously, that also it depends on like when signing bonuses are hitting your book. So it's not always that clean. But aggressive cash spending and then trading premium draft capital. Like right now, the Cleveland Browns are all in. They haven't made a first-round pick in a couple of years. They trade for Jerry Jeudy after trading for Elijah Moore last year. You make the Deshaun Watson trade. You're signing Zadarius Smith and all these like you're just nonstop adding. You're building out depth. You're like they're pretty much all in. But yeah, it gets used way too often. Rarely do teams actually go all in this league.
Understood. So if you had a second level of all in, would the Eagles be in that?
Yeah, last year they were probably, you could argue, the most, just because they knew they had Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox probably in their last seasons. Maybe Brandon Graham, obviously he's coming back. But yeah, they're in the second tier. Miami's in that second tier for sure. They've been kind of in that second tier for a little bit now. So yeah, I would throw the Eagles in there as well.
Quarterbacks. We had to talk about quarterbacks at the top of the draft because it's so interesting. There's so many teams that have put themselves in a corner, most notably Denver, probably in Minnesota. In my estimation, some bad GMing because they have to go get a quarterback, and you never want to be in that position, I think, where you have to go get a quarterback. Already Kwesi's kind of overpaid for that second first-round pick. Now he's going to have to overpay again to get up higher to get a quarterback. How do you see the quarterback landscape shifting out with these quarterback desperate teams?
Yeah, I mean, the Kwesi, the Vikings move is kind of the most similar to the double trade up for Carson Wentz, that I can recall. Obviously not veteran players involved there, but I almost think that Arizona or the Chargers told Minnesota they want another first. Like, I don't think Kwesi would make that trade, which by, advanced charts is the Vikings giving up some capital. And I know that he looks at every chart and is obviously the analytic GM, as we all know. And I say that just because the Jameson Williams trade and other trades they've made have been more like beneficial to the Vikings on the advanced charts that us nerds look at. And maybe he loses, quote unquote, per Jimmy Johnson, which Jimmy Johnson does control the marketplace. But like they clearly are looking at other resources on those same advanced charts. This trade was a loss, but I think it's because they are hell bent on going to 4 or 5. I still think it's going to be JJ McCarthy, the guy that's there. I think it's going to go Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and then the Vikings trade up and get JJ McCarthy at 4 or 5.
So you mentioned some of the other draft value charts that people use. Jimmy's is the most famous, the most long-standing, and you still think the number one used by teams in the National Football League because there are others. Do you know of
Brad's got one? I'd look at Brad's. Do
you know of any team that values yours above and beyond Jimmy Johnson's?
I can tell you for a fact, like you have to have a near, zero-sum trade on the Jimmy Johnson chart to get a deal done. Like that is what teams, and I had some teams just explicitly tell me, like we don't look at anything else. We just know that Jimmy Johnson is what controls the marketplace. So that's just all we look at. So that is still, and I've, this is my opinion. I back tested this and ran through all the values with all the picks. And and determined that Jimmy Johnson still is the closest to zero sum. It is the chart they use. But what other teams are doing now is they'll game away where it's neutral on Jimmy Johnson, but on those advanced charts, whether it's getting more late round picks or getting future picks that they don't devalue quite as much, or doing pick swaps instead of just giving up only picks, you get one back in return. Stuff like that is all the things that we like on those advanced charts. And like I said, Minnesota, Baltimore, the organizations that I've not talked to either one, but the organizations that I know use their analytics department and rely on those people, Philadelphia certainly included as well. they are teams that tend to, the trades look better on our charts, and I'm not surprised by that.
Fair enough. I saw you retweet this just a couple of minutes ago before you came on here, and I haven't had a chance to read Andrew Marchand's article that the NFL Network is doing some dicing and slicing.
James Palmer, our buddy,
Palmer,
yeah,
Will Selva, and Andrew Siciliano. Your comment was, not sure how any network is better without Siciliano. You know what? I sat next to him once at a wedding. Didn't know him from Adam, but a fellow friend of both of ours just happened to be getting married. And he said, let me throw Jody and Andrew sitting together. I had never met the guy before. Had a great time drinking with him all night long. And I think he's phenomenal at what he does. Why the hell does the NFL Network need to be cutting salaries?
They need that money, Brad. They need that money.
It's crazy. I guess ESPN's going to take them over at some point. So maybe they're like already preparing for emerging talent. I'll just say this, and James is great too. Will's awesome too. I've never met James or Will. I'm not saying this just because I have met, and we're not buddies. I've met him a couple times in passing, and he's hosted when I've gone on NFL Network. But Andrew Siciliano, off the air and stuff, he knows ball. The guy knows football at an extremely high level. He is not just a host. I came on for a free agency thing, and he was pulling free agency situations from multiple years prior, just off the top of his head. But he is also a great guy. I've heard nothing but good things about him. I thought he was great on Red Zone. I don't know how. I really don't know how a network would think that they shouldn't do all they can to keep him around. He's awesome.
Yeah, it's a shame. I think you're right, 100%. I think when you sort of mesh the two together, and probably ESPN is going to take over more and more, and then you don't have just room, and you have talents, and people got to go. It's unfortunate, and obviously the NFL. I say that facetiously. They don't need to cut anybody, but it's always a shame. Good for you, though. You are going in a positive direction. Great job at Pro Football Focus, obviously, for years over the cap. Now going to be the director of football administration for Grand Central Sports Management. Can't say congratulations enough. I hope you can still come on the show. I don't know how your new job will affect that, but Jody and I are going to ask. So just, be prepared for that, Brett.
Well, thank you a ton. Very, very kind of you. Unfortunately, not going to be a big part of what I'm doing. So we'll try maybe once in a while. But I'm not going to be making too many appearances.
That's what I figured. I was disappointed.
Yeah. But thank you guys a ton.
You're bagging us. Just go ahead and say it. You're bagging us going forward. We're out.
Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah. Lose my number, Jody.
We will walk that fine line and get you on once every blue moon, but not over ass, because we know we're not going to get the results that we want. But you've been great coming on our show, on my CBS shows. I want to thank you for that. Wish you nothing but the best with the new venture. Thanks much. Enjoy your new gig.
Thank you guys a ton. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Brad.
Brad Spielberger, formerly of PFF, and now director.
He's still there. He's still got one more week.
A week to go. We got him in on his last week. I just thought it'd be a good week to get him on because we're out before I thought he was going to be. See, I didn't know he's getting a new gig. I said he'll be nuts the week before the draft. We'll never get him on, so we better go a couple weeks in advance. Little did I know we're going to get to tell everybody that he's got a new gig. All right, McMullen, McDonald coming back. We got to put a bow on this show.